Hello all, hope everyone are doing good. Welcome back to Knowledge Base. Today we will see some Xamarin Tech Talk. Today we are trying to cover Xamarin Forms, in that working with local database using SQLite in Xamarin Forms. So we'll just get started. So this is our topic for the day, working with local DB in Xamarin Forms. So let's just get started. So first, what is SQLite? SQLite is a local database in your compact device. So it's a compact library. It's basically an embedded SQL database engine which actually has all the same operations that we perform with SQL Server or Oracle database. It has also all the CRUD operations that we can perform. It actually deals with normal disk files within your device. It's basically an open source one, and it's completely free to use. Either it is personal or commercial, anything, it's completely free to use. And if you see this, if I say compact library, you can see that library size, it's 500 KB. It's amazing with all the features included. If there are certain optional features, if you just exclude those, it even comes down to 300 KB or 350 KB. So it's very compact library and it's very easy to use. Coming to Xamarin Forms, so I think people are aware of what is Xamarin. So what is this Xamarin Forms? This is basically an API which actually helps in developing your iOS or Android applications using C Sharp. So the .NET guys can directly jump in developing Xamarin Forms with their well-known C Sharp language. What is the basic advantage or the major advantage of Xamarin Forms? It's completely, I can able to share the code across all my platforms, iOS, Android, and even Windows. When compared with Xamarin and Xamarin Forms, the UI here we are developing once, and this particular UI is completely reflected in iOS and Android based upon their native capabilities. In Xamarin, we are trying to develop an iOS application using Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Android for Xamarin Android applications. But those two are two different UIs. We are sharing the code across these two platforms at one place. But in Xamarin Forms, we are sharing the code, we are sharing the UI. So that's the major advantage of Xamarin Forms, and we can write the Xamarin Forms applications using XAML for designing purpose, or else you can directly write in C Sharp also, and the complete backend code would be in C Sharp. So let's just get started. So here the steps are very simple. We are just going to create a normal Xamarin Forms project, and within that Xamarin Forms project we are including SQLite PCL1. So with the help of this package, we are just trying to work with the local database. Let's just get started. So I'm just going to create a normal Xamarin Forms application. So here I'm selecting multi-platform, app, and the forms. So I'm just naming this particular as sample local DB. So and I'm choosing Android iOS, and I'm selecting portable class library. So and here I'm using XAML user interface files. So if you are pretty much comfortable with C Sharp, you can just even go and write the complete UI in C Sharp also. So this is what I'm not going to change anything, and I'm just clicking on create. So this is what the basic structure of Xamarin Forms will be. Having a PCL, will be having a Droid project and iOS project. So if we are trying to create this particular solution in Windows machine, so you'll be having even Windows Phone, UWP, and even Windows 8 applications also. So now our packages are successfully added. So if you see this structure, so we just got our packages folder and the initial file app.xaml and the packages file and a initial page. So it just takes whatever the project name and it creates a normal initial page for us. So, and the Droid project and the iOS project remain same. There won't be any change. So let's just get started with our initial step. We have created a basic project. So now we are trying to include the package, whatever we have looked into, SQLite, and we'll just scroll down. So, and we'll just find out the SQLite net PCL. So this was written by Frank, and this is a very useful library which has all the features, and it's pretty much easy to use, and even it's very compact also. So I'm just adding this library. So if you are trying to add this particular package into your solution, you just need to be aware that you need to add this particular package to all the projects within this particular solution. So when you're dealing with Android iOS, you need to include this particular package even in that project also. So as of now, for this example, we are dealing with only iOS project, so I'm just trying to include only in iOS. So the frequently used package will be listed on the top, and I'm just clicking on this add package. So it's just trying to add the specific libraries into our iOS application. So if you just see, it is trying to gather all the dependencies, and it includes all the necessary packages into our iOS project. So meanwhile, we can just try to add some files into our PCL. So for this example, we are just targeting a basic sample of an employee. So we are just trying to create a small model which has employee ID and a name and a designation, and we are capturing an age. So this is what the simple model, and we are not following any kind of architectures and all. It's just a plain application. So if your application has any specific architectures like MVVM or MVVM Lite or any other architecture, just you can just easily use this particular approach with in that pattern also. So for this sample, I'm just trying to go with only plain application. So I'm not using any architectures and all, just creating one model and some layers for accessing that particular local database and all. So let's just create that particular model. So I'm just creating a normal class, and I'm just naming this particular class as employee. So this PCL is just getting added. Accept that. So we are just trying to create this employee model. So employee ID, so one property, employee name is another property, designation, and we are capturing the age. So as everyone are aware, if we talk about database, there will be certain primary key fields and certain properties for that primary key fields. So even in the SQLite also, we can have a primary key, or even there is no mandatory rule that you need to have a primary key, but it's a good practice that for every particular table there should be a unique key that can be used to identify that particular record easily. So here we are just trying to have a primary key field. So in this particular model, we are dealing with employee ID, which will be unique. So I'm just trying to have employee ID as my primary key, and so the number should be auto incremented. For that, I'm just specifying auto increment attribute here. So let's just resolve this using SQLite. So it just got resolved. So this is our basic model. So we have just created the employee with all the simple fields that we are dealing with. Now we'll just try to create one interface which deals with fetching up local path from your native applications. So let's just start creating that particular interface. So because we need to have some kind of native capabilities, we need to bring into our Xamarin Forms. Like I cannot directly get the database from my PCL, get my iOS database directly from my PCL. So in iOS, I need to specify the database path and I need to get that particular path into my PCL. So I'm just trying to have my native capabilities into my PCL. So for that, I need to go with dependency process in my Xamarin Forms application. So for that, I'm just trying to create a small interface. So I'm just naming it as a local file helper. So this is an interface. And within that interface, I'm just going to create a small method, so which gets the local path. So it takes the path file name, whatever the file name that we define. So this is our interface. So we have just created a model and we have created an interface. So now let's just move on to in creating our database. So I'm just trying to create one file which deals with the complete employee database. Okay. So in this particular employee database, we are trying to perform all the CRUD operations which are required for this particular application. So let's just get all the employees, get a specific employee, update, save the employee, delete an employee, all the specific CRUD operations we are just performing here. So we are trying to deal with SQLite. So we need to create a connection for that SQLite. So for that, we are just going to deal with a SQLite connection, and all the operations that we are performing here are asynchronous. So we just got SQLite async connection, which we are using here. Let's just resolve this. First, connection. So we'll just resolve that. Let's just check the spelling. Q is capital. Okay. So include the SQLite, and we need to pass the DB path for this constructor, so that whatever the path that we are sending here, so we need to create a database based on that. So we are just dealing with a database, so I'm just renaming that database is equals to new SQLite connection, and we need to pass the DB path. So we got constructors here, so I'm just trying to go with the basic one. So I'm just passing my DB path, and once the DB is there, so we need to create our table. So if we got multiple tables, then we can just go with create tables, where we need to pass. So if you see here, we just got multiple models that we can just easily pass here. So we are dealing with only one particular table now. So employee, and so as this is an asynchronous operation, we need to wait till this particular operation is completely done. So we are using a wait. So this is the basic constructor, and after that we are going to deal with certain methods. So the initial method would be fetching up all the employees. So it will be a task of, so as we are dealing with multiple employees, so we are trying to go with the collection. So in this scenario, I'm just going to use a list. So get employees, and for namesake we will be using async. It's not mandatory to have that naming convention, but for namesake I'm just trying using that particular name. So I'm just resolving all the necessary dependencies. So return database dot table, and we need to perform certain query, right? So which table? Employee table, and all the employee list, so to list async. So we are just fetching all the employees in that database. One more method which actually deals with specific employee. So employee get employee async. So we are just trying to deal with the same query, employee, and here we are trying to use some kind of a link operation where we are just dealing with one specific employee. So I need to fetch that particular specific employee. So we got one unique identifier which is employee ID dot first or default async. So here we need to pass the employee ID as a parameter, which we forgot. So we are trying to fetch the employees, and we are performing a where condition, where clause here. So where I'm just trying to fetch the employees with respect to that particular ID. Now we'll deal with saving the employee. So if my employee is created, then it would be 1, and if the employee is not created, then it would be 0. So we are just trying to use as an integer. So save employee async. So we are trying to go with the same method for adding the employee and even updating the employee. So for this saving, we need to have one model, so which is employee model, which we need to pass, and let's just check if employee ID not equals to null, then it would be add, else it would be an update. So as we are trying to perform on an integer, so rather than checking with null, we'll just check with 0. So we are trying to return database dot save database dot insert async, and we need to pass the object employee, and here return database dot update async, and we need to pass the employee object. That's it. So you can just even swap this particular condition by just making this not equals to, and you can just modify this here, and we can just make insert. So anything is fine. So based on your condition, you can just check. So now we'll just deal with the another method which is used to delete the employee. So it's an integer, say delete employee async, and the same way we need to pass the employee object and return database dot delete async, and we'll be passing the employee. So this is our database class, so where we are dealing with the connection, we are creating the table, we are fetching all the employees, we are fetching the particular employee, saving the employee, either it could be insert or an update, and we are deleting the employee. So now just initiate this particular database process when we start the application. So we'll just go with app.xaml. So here we need to start pulling up the specific connection, and we need to get the local path, and we need to get the database name, and all the process will be done here. So we'll just create an object for our employee database, which I'm making it as a static. So employee database, so we'll just name it as a database. In that, so we'll be creating one specific property. So public static employee database, which is database, and we'll try to create a get property because we are dealing with only fetching up the database name. So we'll just go with database. So if my database is equals to null, so if I don't have any database, then fetch the database. So database is equals to, so we are just trying to create the instance of our employee database where we need to pass the DB path. So here, as we discussed, like we are trying to use the dependency process. So we're just going to create the dependency service, which resolves our iLocal file helper. Within that, we'll be fetching our get, sorry, just missed dependence dot get, and we are trying to fetch a local path, and we are trying to mention the DB name here. So for this example, I'm just trying to use employee dot db3. So this is my employee, and we'll be returning the database. So we are just trying to create a property which actually returns me a database of a specific name. So it just brings me the local database file path and all the stuff. So we are done with this initialization also. Now we'll just create the UI for these two screens. We are dealing with a list screen, and we are dealing with adding and updating a screen. So I'm just trying to delete the existing one. So I'm just going to create a new one, forms, and I'm just taking a content page XAML. So employee list page. So this is my employee list page, and we'll just go with the XAML. So now we'll just create a list here. So where we are trying to show our employee names and even the designations here. So I'm just going to create a list view, and I'm naming this list view as employee list view, and we are just trying to have some properties here. So I'm making it as fill and expand, vertical options, fill and expand, and that's it for now. And I'm just going to create an item template for populating my data. If I don't specify item template and all, as it's a model, it just shows the model name as a list item. So rather than that, I just need to show exact value from that model. So I'm just trying to create an item template. Within that item template, there will be a data template which deals with multiple data items where we can just populate the data. So I'm using text cell. Text cell has multiple properties in that. So either you can just show only one name, or you can just show as a detail, and even you can show an image. So these are the three parts. So if you are aware of iOS, then we have detail name, subtitle name, and image. So these three are there in that particular cell appearance pattern. So we can just go in that fashion. So for this example, I'm just going to have a text and a detailed text. So text, I'm just having a binding, and I'm just binding employee name. So we'll just check what is the name that we have given. So employee name, and for detail I'm just going with binding, and I'll be showing my designation. That's it. So we are just trying to create an employee list view, and we are trying to bind employee name and the designation for this text cell. Fine. So we'll just try to run the application with this list. So before that, as we discussed, we have just tried to deal with dependency. So we need to resolve this particular dependency here. So before that, employee list page will be my startup page. So we'll just go to our iOS application and we'll create one specific file here, which I'll be naming it as local helper. So where we'll be resolving this particular file path. So empty class, and I'm just renaming this particular thing as local file helper. Local file helper. So let's just remove the constructor. So we'll be using some kind of dependencies. So system.io for input output operations, and we are dealing with Xamarin Forms and even the same namespace. So we are trying to inherit this particular class from that interface that we have created. Within that interface, we'll be implementing that method which returns the file path. So let's just get the base folder in my device. So environment dot folder path will be having a get folder path, which fetches the specific special folder defined for that particular application. So we'll be having personal get that particular path, and we'll be getting the library folder. So path dot combine, and whatever the doc folder that we got and the specific library folder, and we are renaming that particular thing as databases. So this is the complete path for our database that is going to store in our device, and we are just trying to perform some directory operations here. Directory dot exists if already the folder exists. So here we are using not condition. So if it doesn't exist, we are just trying to create a directory with that particular path, and we are returning that path. So whatever that folder that we created and the file name. So here we are just getting that folder path, and we are trying to get that library folder, and we are just creating the directory if it doesn't exist, and we are returning the complete path. So this particular path will be pushed here. So this is what the dependency that we are trying to resolve here. So before that, we need to resolve the dependency here. So we'll go with assembly, and in that we are telling that it is a dependency. So this particular dependency is of type whatever that class file that we have created now. And let's just close this. So this is what the dependency. Now let's run this application and see what happens. So we got our list view shown perfectly. So, and we don't have any issues here also. So let's just refine this. We, as you even you can just see that our database is also created inside, because whatever the path, navigation path that it has actually executed, within that we are just trying to create a directory, we are just trying to create a DB also. So as we don't have any database table elements or the data within that table, so we are unable to see any data. So let's just complete this flow. Let's have a navigation bar here, so that we'll just complete the complete flow, and we'll just have a name. So employee list, and we need to have one specific add button here, so that I can just able to navigate to another screen. So for that we are just dealing with a toolbar item. So I'm just going to create a toolbar item. So and within that toolbar item, so I want to have text as, so let's just have a plus for nav, and we have even icon property here, where you can just even specify the icon based on the platform. So as of now I'm not going with icon, so I'm just going with the plain text. And when the toolbar item is clicked, so I want to perform certain operation, like I want to navigate to another screen. So let's just create that particular detail screen, employee page. So this is what our page. So navigation dot push async, and we need to push it to the new page, the employee page. So this employee page need to be bound with one particular model, which is our employee model itself. So you can specify this thing here, or you can just specify even in that screen also. So either ways it is absolutely fine. So let's just add this toolbar items. So we are trying to add the toolbar item. Now we'll run the application and see what happens. So we got our title displayed here, and we just got a plus icon, so which moves to detail screen. So now we'll just bind the data source to our list. So for that we are dealing with on appearing. When on appearing is called, I'm trying to have employee list view dot item source is equals to, so as it's an async operation, I'm just specifying this as async. So here await, and app dot database. So if you see here, we just got the app and we have created it as a static one. So we are dealing with this same object here, app dot database dot get employees async. So we are getting all the employees, and we are trying to bind that particular thing to our list view. This is done. So now we'll just move to our employee page, where we need to create a basic template for displaying our employee. We need to create the employee, right? So for that we are just going to create a basic template. So I'm just going with this basic template. So I'm just creating a stack layout with certain padding and horizontal options, fill and expand. Design is up to you, so it depends upon your interest and all, and it depends upon your application need. So based on that you can just change the design. So here I am going to use a grid, and I am creating column definition, so where I just want to have two columns, one for label and one for text area. So column definition, and I'm specifying the width as auto for the first element, and for the other one I'm just defining it as star, so that based on data it should accommodate. So I'm not going to define the rows, as I know how many number of rows, so I'm not going to define the row definitions here. So let's just create a label first, and we'll just specify the name as name, and it should display on the first row and the first column, and I'm just making it as start and vertical options as center. So let's just copy this. So as we got name, designation, and we just got age, so we'll modify this. So designation will be on the first row and the age would be on the second row. So rest of the things are same because those are on the first column. Now we'll be having an entry field which is a binding property, which has a binding property. So binding employee name, and we'll just copy this. So it will be in the row 0 and it will be at column number 1. So we'll just copy the same designation. So it would be at row 1 and the column 1. Sorry. And age, it would be in row 2, column 1. Let's just run the application now. So how our design looks like. Let's just tab this. So we got a name, designation, and age perfectly created. So now we'll be having buttons for saving the record. So for that we'll be going with a button field, button element here. So button, and the one will be save. So I'll be using fill and expand, and the background color will be blue for this, and text color I'm just making it as white. We'll just copy this and we'll have a cancel button and red. Fine. So now we have two buttons, so where we need to write some logic behind that for performing an operation. So let's just go with save here. So if you are dealing with MVVM and all, so you'll be dealing with commands. So for this sample I'm just going with the normal events. So clicked, and I'll be having a method here. So let's just rename this save clicked, and I'll be using the same event here. and now we'll just specify the save operation here. Let's get the employee data first. So as we have mentioned our binding context, let's get the employee data. Sorry, just swapped. So we have mentioned the binding context as employee here. So that's the reason we are dealing with binding context and we are casting it to employee. Now we'll try to insert save. So we got save employee async. Within that we are trying to pass our person item object, and we'll be navigating back to the list screen, and we'll just create event for cancel also. So it's cancel underscore clicked. So when the cancel underscore clicked is tabbed, so we just will be navigating back to the existing list screen. So there is no specific logic here. So if your application has any operations that to be performed when even clicking on cancel, you can just write all those. So this is the screen. And we have just left with one particular event that should be written here. So when I'm selecting an item, so I need to get navigated to the detail page where I can just update the data. So employee item selected. So we'll just rename that and we'll just close. So we are just trying to cast this particular item here. And as all the operations are async, so we are just trying to deal with async. And if e dot selected item not equals to null, so we need to be aware that we are dealing with all the null checks and all. Navigation dot push async, and it's new page, it's employee page. Within that employee page, we just got a binding context, and that particular binding context is an employee object. Now that particular binding object is selected item, so I'm just trying to cast that particular thing as an employee. So now whatever the selected item will be casted as an employee object, and it will be bounded to that particular page, and we are mapping it as a binding context here. Now let's just run the application. Fine. I'll just tap on add. Save. So we got our data stored perfectly in our local database. Let's just update that. So the complete operations are happening here. So we can just have different events. We can just write like context menus where I can just swipe left or right for getting the context menu, and I can just have the delete process also. So for this example, this is what we have covered. We just created a database. We tried to have insert logic, update logic, and get all the employees. We designed the list screen and the detail and add screen, and the complete process is here. So thank you so much. If you can if you want to reach me, you can just reach me at my email ID, and you can just even look at my Twitter, and that is my blog .NET Mobile. So you can just check for updated articles. Thank you so much.